a reflex. It's a reflex. Let's acknowledge that reflex. We have a minute and a half for folks to fill out their ballots and take their place. Before I start going through the judges panel again, I'd like to describe what didn't happen tonight. One of the ideas on the table was a similar format, but a little bit faster, and then a discussion, or I called it a melee between the judges, where they might call upon their other judges and disagree, probably not violently disagree, but disagree with certain
I
things.
can't believe you said that.
Yeah.
You're so wrong.
Maybe next time. I also wanted foam swords for them. Yeah, that was not welcomed at all. So, next time. Jeff, are you prepared to present your thoughts on
I am.
speech
Before I say that, before I get to my thoughts, I would like to remind everyone, I think you mentioned this earlier, but judging is very different than evaluating. Our job as judges is not to think about, oh, what could Chivon have done better? How could she have been more effective? Our job is to mentally decide how effective was it, right? So it's a subtle difference, but it's a very keen and very important difference to recognize. So as we go through talking about critiques or ideas, really our ideas and our judgments are based on, you know, where a certain level of skill or proficiency is exhibited in that specific instance, in that specific speech.
So if you don't like what I'm saying, you're just saying I'm Simon Cowell.
I know. I told Chang that I wanted to be the grumpy judge, but I'm not.
You're not living up to that so far. Did you not have enough coffee?
Hey now.
What contest is this?
This is the International Speech Contest. This is, I believe, one of the semi-final speeches.
Right.
I believe this woman is from Massachusetts, actually. So.
Which means this is what she won at her district.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Jeff, please present your thoughts on speech development.
Okay. I gave Chivon for speech development 15 out of 20. She had a compelling opening and a good introduction with her school. There was a very abrupt transition to sports, and that transition lost her some points in my book. The story follows a very natural progression for most high school athletes. So there it's not a particularly new or powerful speech, but it does follow very common psychological development. She had to earn a place, and she had to put in the work to become an overachiever, and all of that was a good performance, a good speech, content, or speech development, 15 out of 20 points.
Thank you. Jonathan.
I felt she was excellent in her speech development. She grabbed us, she got right to the point. There's a very basic formula with a proposition put right up front there. She kept to the storyline. She gave very concrete examples to make her points. In fact, the examples were her points. She didn't just tell us what she was going to tell us. She told us with the specifics of the details. She made her points. She drew logical conclusions. She kept it in chronological order to keep it simple and straightforward. I said it was excellent.
Thank you. Mark?
This was a basketball story, with the second and third sub-stories being of getting past freshman team to varsity, and the third being getting past bench sitting to playing in the senior year in college. To that, she added the third story, sub-story of special needs at the beginning, and the boxing metaphor was added to the very beginning, the opening, to grab our attention, and the been counted out phrase was the only time it was referenced again, it was at the conclusion. The youth-centered tie-in that she gave at near the end was to basically explain the closing, and I felt that neither the boxing metaphor nor the special needs story actually applied. It actually even belonged in the speech. It demonstrated that she did know how to organize the topic a little bit, but this was a good club speech. It was not a contest speech. For speech development, since it really was only quite fair, I could only give this a 7.
Thank you. See why I wanted foam swords here? Next time.
Okay.
Next time. Jeff, are you prepared to discuss effectiveness?
Effectiveness of Mainoo's speech. I gave a 10 out of 15. Her speech lost some points in my book. It held the interest and conveyed a message, but wasn't overly engaging. She had moderate use of props. I liked the chair and the towel. They were modest, moderate. They were not distracting. They helped add variety without any form of distraction. For that, I gave her a 10 out of 15 for a good performance, a good effectiveness.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I'm generous tonight. Again, I thought she was excellent with her effectiveness. She gave us her thesis in a opening full sentences after pulling us in with the counting down. Not a lot of wasted time in being so direct and so clear. I found myself waiting for the next piece, not wondering if there were going to be any twists or turns. It was a universal topic. This business of being put down and then overcoming it seems to be a very common theme in winning Toastmasters speeches. Entirely appropriate and well suited to a Toastmasters audience.
Thank you. Mark?
The effectiveness row is about CC number 3, get to the point, where we have to ask, what was the general purpose? This was to inspire. What was the specific purpose of the 3-part message? It was, if you have been underestimated, you can still be an overcomer if you put in the work. With that as the message, only the second and third sub-stories, really, the ones about basketball, illustrated putting in the work. Sub-story number 1 was not about putting in the work. Her mother just took her out of the special needs class. It did not illustrate the putting in the work. So it really wasn't needed. So being counted out does illustrate being underestimated, but so could any other example to that, which it confused and conflated boxing with basketball. And so for effectiveness, since it was not even fully quite fair, I could only give it a 4.
Wow. Thank you. Jeff, moving on to the next ballot item.
Okay, speech value. I gave Chivon a 10 out of 15. This is a fairly standard message of perseverance or grit. You guys know what grit is? That's good. My son said he heard about it. We talked about it in school, but he has no idea what it is.
Round corn.
A very standard message. It's a good message, a solid message. The thing that I found particularly interesting, a point in the speech which I think was undersold, was that this challenging idea to thank those who hold you back, to thank those who place obstacles in your path. So where that was not, this is the hard part where it's hard to be a judge, because I can see that being a better speech. But as a judge, there are elements of a great value in the speech, but was not completely delivered or developed. I gave it a 10 out of 15.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I felt the speech value was very good, but not quite excellent. It was meaningful. Personalization things made it all relatively original. You can see, you can feel her strength, her determination, her tenacity, but I wasn't moved to any sort of ecstasy and didn't find anything overwhelming. So I gave it a 12.
Thank you. Mark?
To me, this contestant is probably a brand new CC, and if even that, and that inexperience really did show. At best, the speech might be good for second or third place trophy at a division contest, but certainly not first, and even much less to have moved on and won first at district. Alas, this is what can happen when judges incorrectly prefer premise over points on the judges' ballot, because it was a very fun premise. The message was motivational, but it gave us nothing new, and it didn't give us anything in a way we haven't heard before. Been there, done that. This was a very, very good club speech, but it was not a good contest speech, not yet anyway. So for speech value, since it was at best only quite fair, I can only give this a 5.
Thank you. Moving on to delivery. Physical delivery, Jan.
Physical delivery. I gave Chivon 5 out of 10. That's average performance. The props, simple props, and use of the chair and towel was good. Excellent stage movement. I found that to be good. She used large gestures which were appropriate for the room. I especially liked the bright lights and the huge gym that brought us in. In her discussion of the varsity, junior varsity, and wee little freshmen were all examples of good physical delivery. None of it, however, was excellent. So I gave her a 5 out of 10 for a good, solid performance.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I felt her body language was very comfortable, and it led me to give her the middle of very good at an 8. When she used her whole body, she synchronized her words with her actions, such as when she's seated on the bench, she sat down. I noted she lowered her face, but she didn't lose her words or her audibility, as she gave a pretty good range of emotions, very good range of emotions, actually, I'd say, through gesture and movement. She might have lost a point because I was very put off by her sloppy appearance. Her jacket didn't fit well. Her blouse was askew, and the middle button of her jacket was not fastened. And yes, to me, appearance is part of the physical. So I gave her an 8.
Thank you. Mark?
In CC number 5, your body speaks. Having good body gestures does not mean waving your arms. That's what symphony conductors do. At the contest level, gestures should be tied to a concept. Although I will say, the varsity, junior varsity, and freshman teams, now that was a good example. But other than that, and other than the boxing countdown and sitting on the bench listening to the buzzer, it was mostly symphony conducting. Such as, you must put in the work. I agree appearance-wise that if she could not button the middle button, the coat should have been left open. So for physical, since it was just barely good, I can only give this a 4.
Thank you. Moving on to voice. Jack?
For voice, I gave Chivon a 5 out of 10 for voice. Her countdown from 10 was very powerful. The tick-tock, and she had a speech impediment, which distorted some of her words, and yet she enunciated very well. So overall, a good solid performance, but again, not excellent. I gave her a very good.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I felt her voice was good, but not outstanding for a speech in this round. She lost points with me because although I could hear clearly, she had an unfortunate tendency to break the flow of a sentence, putting a pause or a comma where there naturally wouldn't be one. Compounding that, she misplaced her vocal emphasis, often accentuating the wrong word. I gave her a 5.
Thank you. Mark?
Good strong voice, able to project volume well. She used pauses and emoted the frustration. These are examples that show she's learned some well from the CC number 6 vocal variety. But sometimes the pause rates were overdone and non-natural, as in, do you know any 5-year-old who's good at sitting still? Or all you wanted was a chance to show what you could do. So for the voice, since it was barely good, I can only give this a 4.
Thank you. Manner.
For manner, I gave Chivon a 5 out of 10. We had a good sense of her personality through the speech. She expressed excitement very well. Go Chivon, go Chivon. That was a fun moment. And she also was very good with just expressing her disappointment as she sat on the bench. Another game that I didn't play in. Those were shining points. Overall, the speech was full of average moments. I gave her a 5 out of 10.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Manner, I gave her a 7 out of 10. She told us with a strong sense of heart, as one should when one telling one's own story. And with all speeches of this sort, there was a certain theatrical or histrionic aura that removed her really from being totally authentic. I didn't feel she was 100% comfortable, and I had to mark it down.
Thank you. Mark.
When this contestant smiles, she is positively beaming. She walked on stage, shook the MC's hand, beamed her smile, and then her face went through a number of expressions before even starting her countdown. This young woman was nervous. But once she got started, she grew comfortable in her skin, and her sincerity and strength shined through. Maybe the staccato delivery of non-natural pauses is something she might have learned from church, I don't know. You can still be an overcomer, but those staccato pauses still distracted from her speech when the words were powerful enough on their own. So for manner, since it was barely good, again, I can only give it a 4. Always 4.
Thank you. Thank you. Jack, moving on to language appropriateness.
Language. I gave Chivon a 7 out of 10 for language. Her word choice was clear and concise. She avoided sports jargon, which is a pretty good feat for a speech that was so full of sports metaphors. That phrase, another game in which I didn't play, thought that was a very good use of language. And the point in which the Clark University coach said, "You're a good player, but we can make you great." The inflections and pauses aside, that's a very powerful phrase and a very powerful idea. All of that was great use of language. I gave her better than average, a 7 out of 10.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Language was decent, clean, frankly just decided boring. And given the situations, and I'm stepping into evaluation a little bit here, but I thought that it could have used a little more when she was doing the voice of the coach or the voice of her mother, that perhaps she could have used a different bit of vocal variety, different tone. Other than that, everything was appropriate to the audience, but I think there needed to be a little more spice to really frost the cake.
And what was your score again? 8. All right, thank you.
Appropriateness is about word usage as taught in CC number 4, how to say it. The contestant used words appropriate for a simple club speech, but this is supposed to be a contest speech. Almost none of the C4 lessons, CC4 number lessons of rhetorical tools were applied. There were no triads, no alliterations, nothing. Yes, the boxing countdown was a metaphor, but mixing boxing with basketball made it mildly mixing metaphor. And yes, I just used a metaphor and a triad. So for appropriateness, since it was just barely good, I can only give this, guess what? A 4.
I feel like Mark and I were in sync a little bit on our scores on this one. You rounded down, I rounded up, but
Yeah.
we need foam swords. Okay. For correctness, language correctness, I gave Chivon a 5 out of 10. She had some interesting word choices. Clearly, I was not this child. And players that were so bad that they were better at watching it on TV than playing it. Those word choices, they work together very well. Again, the pauses and inflections aside. And you can become an overcomer. That is one of those literary things, come and overcome. Anyways, good use. Again, not exceptional or stellar. I gave her a good score, average score of 5.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Alas for me, this is where she really lost points. I gave her a 3. Stretch as I could, I found her occasional word stumbling, distracting, and could only mark this as fair. More than once she slipped. She pronounced the word little as lil. At one point she remarks on being with my sister, and although less than 10% of the overall score, this dropped her significantly, and she also dropped, when I watched it again this time, she dropped the G's, referring to it as a stumbling block and a learning disability. Not really very good.
Thank you. Mark?
I concur with that and add to the examples. The contestant does have a word pronunciation problem. She didn't pronounce the end of a T, the letter T at the end of the word next. It was next. And then she also has trouble converting L's and R's into W's. 5 years old, odd to horrible players, frustrated, school. She really has a challenge with that. Now, if she was someone with special needs, perhaps I could look past it. But she herself said she doesn't have special needs. That's what she told us in the speech. So honestly, I'm not picking on that, but I think she needs to see an elocution expert on this particular issue. So for correctness, since it was only and just fair, I could only give this a 2.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm not forgetting any ballot items, Zara, am I?
Nope.
All right, very good. Thanks to the judges for serving in this capacity.
I have a quick question while they're going back.
Oh, yes.
How many times did you guys see these speeches to give that level of detail for each item? Thank you.
You stole my question. I did not out of the bag. This was the second time I saw it.
Second, yeah. So was that second for everybody? Or?
Well, I cheated somewhat. I actually saw it live.
Right.
So I saw it at the conference, and then for doing this presentation, I watched it twice. I watched it once to get my initial impressions, make my scores, and as I was looking for specific examples of why I made these specific things, I went back and had to review it. But the scores and the judgment came from that first second viewing, I guess.
Okay. Mark, how many times did you see this?
Actually, I watched them twice, and I realized how hard I was being on them, and so I actually went and watched them 3 more times afterward to make sure that I wasn't making a mistake. And I was right on every time.
Yeah.
So that was the reason I did end up seeing them each 5 times.